Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar, Page Experience. Are you ready for Google's UX ranking update? So my name is Mike Harris. I'm a Contensis campaign manager here at Zengenti. I joined Zengenti in October of last year. I manage end-to-end marketing campaigns for Zengenti. I specialise in multi-channel marketing campaigns, so that's a mixture of SEO, PPC, social media, email marketing, and using those channels to develop intuitive marketing campaigns to help raise the awareness and business opportunities for our product Contensis. I've been in the digital marketing industry for about 12, 13 years now. I've worked predominantly for agencies managing digital marketing accounts for national and international clients, and that will range from SMEs right up to large enterprises in multiple industry sectors, both national and international. So on to today's webinar, the sort of the key takeaways. What is it that we're hoping to get from today's webinar? And sort of five core areas that I want to cover today: the what, the why, the when, the who, and the how. So the what is page experience, and why is it important? When is it going to come into effect? Who will it affect in the business, and how can we prepare for it? So without further ado, page experience, let's have a short introduction. So in its shortest explanation, page experience is Google's latest ranking signal. That's great, but it doesn't tell us an awful lot. So let's dig in a little deeper. So page experience, the ranking signal, it focuses on user experience. It will be released in May of 2021. So we're just a month or so away. And it will affect all mobile search results. So now, what is page experience as a ranking signal? Well, there are 4 existing ranking signals and 3 new ranking signals that make up the page experience ranking signal. Those 4 existing ranking signals that are already about and active in Google's algorithms are the mobile friendly ranking signal, safe browsing, HTTPS, and non-intrusive interstitials. There are 3 new ranking signals that are collectively known as the core web vitals, and they focus on loading, interactivity, and the visual stability of web pages. So collectively, those 7 ranking signals form the new page experience ranking signal. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier that page experience affects all mobile search. On that subject, it's worth noting that mobile devices now account for the majority or near majority of online searches for almost every major industry. And that quote has been taken directly from the 2016 Hitwise study. So that's nearly 5 years old, that quote in that study now. But the trend on mobile search has only increased, and we expect that to only increase over time. So for those in the audience that may think, okay, page experience is only going to affect our mobile search traffic, our mobile search results, mobile is a huge contributor to web traffic. If your analytics states that mobile isn't a big source of traffic, if your web traffic is leaning more towards desktop than it is on mobile, that doesn't mean to say that your opportunities in mobile search aren't there. It is more than likely that your search engine optimization has been more geared up towards desktop than it has on mobile. So your desktop search results, your desktop Google ranking positions may be a lot higher on average than they are in mobile. So in Google's own words, page experience is a measurement used to test how users perceive the experience of interacting with a web page beyond its pure content value. Now, everybody who's joined the webinar today, you will receive our ebook. We have a brand new ebook that's just been created around the subject of page experience. So don't worry if you don't want to take any notes today. We're hoping maybe within the next week or so, the final design drafts of the ebook will be ready. Fingers crossed. If not, it shouldn't be too long after that. So yeah, so if you just want to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's webinar, do so. You will eventually receive an ebook, and in that ebook, we will cover the introduction to Google search, the history of those ranking signals, sort of bringing us up to today, the page experience ranking signal in great depth, why it is important, how to test then those web pages for page experience that you already have in your site at the moment, and new pages that you create, how to optimize web pages for page experience, and then we'll conclude that off in a final thoughts section. So the Ultimate Guide to Page Experience ebook is extensive in detail and in depth, and every link for every tool, guide, tip that I talk about today is included in this ebook. So it's just been polished up at the moment, going through its final sort of design drafts. But you will, I promise you will all receive one, and that will work as kind of your Bible, a perfect guide to follow you through optimizing and improving your pages for page experience. So the importance of page experience. Why is it important? Why are we here today? Why are we doing this? Why are we putting time, resource, and potentially finances into page experience? Well, if we optimize our websites for page experience as the ranking signal, that can lead to two big positives, two big benefits. Number one, our search engine results positions, improving those, which obviously can lead to an increase in website traffic and every benefit that tends to follow on from that, and a better user experience, so leading to more conversions and improved conversion rates. And what I want to do at this point is just stop and just highlight that I've kind of hit home there. There's 2 points to look at. There's 2 angles for page experience as a ranking signal, and probably why the majority of you have joined today. Yes, we can improve our ranking positions. We can get a bit of optimization boost from improving page experience. This is also a fantastic opportunity to focus on user experience of our pages, and look to improve those in general. And maybe some of these points, some of these key signals within page experience will kind of template how you create pages in the future that perhaps focus more on user experience. So there's 2 angles to look at today. Let's not just think of this as it's another Google ranking update. It's another ranking signal for us to have to put time and resource and potentially finances into. Let's look at this as an opportunity to improve user experience. So to help us understand page experience a little bit further, I'm going to explain at a top level sort of how search works, how Google search works, and in particular the indexing and crawling processes of search. So the indexing process, how does that work? We've got a new website, or we've got a new web page we've created in an existing site, and we want to get that information into Google's index. If it's not in Google's index, when searchers are searching in Google, they obviously can't be returned relevant results from our own websites. So how does that work? We request a crawl from Google. And generally this is done through the Google Search Console. If you don't have a Google Search Console at the moment, there are links both in the ebook and in the chat. I highly recommend everybody who's running a website has both Google Analytics and a Google Search Console. So we request a crawl through Google Search Console. The Googlebots crawl our new web page, and they return information then to the Google index where it's stored. and it's stored there until obviously a search is performed in Google. So we're going to perform a search, for example, as you see on the screen there, what is page experience? And that search query is sent to Google. Google then searches its index and it checks stored pages for information against ranking signals. There's a couple of sort of dummy ranking signals there that Google would use. It would look at keywords and it sort of match those keywords up against the search query. It would look for the quality of the content in the page that it has stored in its index, and it may potentially look at links, any referral links, and all of that is helping Google to understand the relevance of the page and then match that to the search query. So Google only wants to return what it believes to be the most relevant results based on your search query. So the ranking system, what is Google's ranking system? So the Google ranking system, in layman's terms, it is quite complex, but in layman's terms, it consists of multiple algorithms, and within each algorithm, there are a multitude of ranking signals. So in Google's own words, the search algorithm, it will look at many factors, including some of the more common signals, the words in your query, the relevance, the usability of pages, expertise of sources, and your location in your settings. And then, of course, it applies a weight to each factor. That will all depend on the nature of the query. Now, what exactly is inside Google's algorithm? We have a good idea. Google indicates us towards areas that it concentrates on within its algorithm, those ranking signals, but we don't always know exactly what they are in great detail or great depth, and we don't certainly know the weight and the importance that Google applies to each of these individual ranking signals. What we do know that Google concentrates on, for example, is a few ranking signals or areas that we know as ranking signals Google will look at, and page content and speed, for example, backlinks, user experience, cross-device usability, safe browsing, mentions or citations to brand, site architecture, location, and search query intent. That is just to name a few, because there are thought to be over 200 individual ranking signals in Google's search algorithms. So now, as search marketing professionals, how do we actually know what those ranking signals are? Yes, Google will indicate towards areas that it wants us to concentrate on in order to improve for purposes of search optimization. But how do we work that out, and how do we know kind of what weight we should apply to those? Well, as search marketing professionals, what we do is we perform correlation analysis. And on your screen now, you're going to see an example of correlation analysis if we were looking at content signals, for example. So there are lots of different areas that ranking signals can be categorized into. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, we were just looking at content, signals for content, and how would we perform a correlation analysis for that? Well, what we do is we look at the search results for a certain query, certain search query that we performed. We'll take the high ranking pages. So by that, that's the organic search results that appear in sort of P1, P2, P3. They're the higher ranking search results. And we then perform a correlation analysis. So we take those high ranking pages and we look for common factors common factors based on what we believe is already in Google's algorithms. So, for example, they may all have had relevant content. They may have all contained, good quality of content, and they could have all had good author citations and lots of related content, lots of good keyword placement and long content length. And if those common factors were appearing in those top 3 search results, we're then starting to form, okay, there's a correlation here between ranking highly in Google search results and these common factors, these ranking signals. And that, of course, is performed on mass scale, and it tends to be performed by large marketing organizations, and they publish their results. It tends to be on like a yearly basis, and as search marketing professionals, we need to follow that, stay up to date with those trends as those ranking signals, common factors, and the weight that's applied to them, that will change on a regular basis. So here on your screens now, you'll see an example of this from First Page Sage, who are one of the largest SEO firms in the US. And they perform this correlation analysis and a study once a year. And you can see there's some of the ranking signals and some of the estimated weight that the study that's been performed suggests that each of those ranking signals has. So kind of suggesting the importance that each of those ranking signals has. So consistent publication of engaging content, keywords in meta titles, backlinks, niche expertise. You see they're ranking fairly highly there in what we believe, or this study suggests, are key ranking signals. But what I want to highlight here in particular is there are 4 ranking signals there: visitor time on site, mobile friendly, page speed, and site security stroke SSL certificate, that make up about 14% of the estimated weight of ranking signals according to this study. And those 4 ranking signals are all either part of or have some sort of direct correlation or effect from page experience, the new ranking signal. So Google's algorithm, it is updated on a regular basis. But what are these algorithm updates? So you'll see on your screen now, over the past sort of decade, Google has updated its algorithm on what us search marketing professionals call major update basis. So there's a difference between minor updates in Google's algorithm and major updates. Google will update its algorithm on average about 500 to 600 times a year, but the majority of those, the high majority, are considered minor updates. Major updates are performed anywhere between, well, on average 1 to 3 times a year. The main difference between a minor and a major algorithm update tends to be the anticipated effect that ranking update and algorithm update is going to have. So those that you see on your screen at the moment, the 9 or 10 or so, have all been major updates over the past decade. We don't know yet whether page experience is going to be considered a major update. That could all depend on the effect that it has, obviously, once it's launched in May. Now, 3 of those major algorithm updates, HTTPS, mobile, and mobile speed, they were all considered major updates when they were released. All 3 of those are in the new page experience ranking signal. So HTTPS as an individual ranking signal. Mobile, if we're looking at it from the mobile friendly perspective, and speed, mobile speed is something that's kind of wrapped into Core Web Vitals as well. So there's 3 major ranking updates there from the past decade that are all included in some way or some form within page experience, the new ranking signal. So page experience as a ranking signal, what does it actually include? What are the components? Well, the first thing to look at, as I've already mentioned, is that the ranking signal only affects mobile search. And as I've already said, and I really want to hit this message home, that this doesn't mean that we should ignore any other devices, for one. So desktop, for example, there's no reason that if we're optimizing our web pages solely for mobile, that we should completely neglect desktop devices. Desktop devices are, and probably will continue to be for some time, a high driver of website traffic. So there's no reason why we should be ignoring those. Look at page experience probably more as an opportunity, yes, to improve user experience on mobile, but also to work our way through any other devices as well that we utilize for sources of traffic. But on the flip side, to reiterate the importance of mobile, there are nearly 60% of all online searches that are performed on mobile devices today. For those of you who have come along from universities, I would hedge my bets that a wide portion of your audiences are students, and obviously a lot of students carry around mobiles all day. So if your students are searching for course content or something like that, you can probably hedge your bets that in a lot of cases they're doing so on mobile. Now this is Google Index mobile version of your website first. Now what that basically means is Google adopts mobile first indexing. So it takes the mobile version of a web page and will index that before desktop. It will only tend to revert to your desktop if there is no mobile version of your site available. And by mobile version, I don't mean that has to be a mobile app or a dedicated mobile site. If your website is mobile responsive in nature, that is going to be classified as the mobile version of your site. That's, believe it or not, it's not a known or common fact. So yeah, again, it just really hammers home the importance of looking at this user experience ranking signal from mobile, especially when Google's only going to be indexing the mobile version of your website. So the 4 existing ranking signals that I've already touched upon, what are their focus areas? Where are they focusing attention to with these? What's Google's kind of initiative here? Okay, so mobile friendly. That focuses on web page performance on mobile devices. Quite simple. Safe browsing. Any signs of malicious content or hacking. HTTPS. So sites that are served over HTTPS as opposed to HTTP. Google prefers your site served over HTTPS. It's the more secure of the 2 protocols. And non-intrusive interstitials. And they are sort of any pop-ups that are appearing that are covering page content. So if you've come from a Google search result and you've gone to a website on a mobile device and you've got a pop-up that's covered the whole of the screen, that they are intrusive pop-ups. What do they look like? There's a couple of examples there on the screen from Eminent SEO to highlight intrusive interstitials. So they don't always need to cover completely the screen. As you can see, the first example there, there's a pop-up that it's appeared. And then these pop-ups are intrusive because I need to perform an action in order to remove that and find the content that I was expecting to see load when I click the search results. So I've clicked a Google search result, gone to a web page, and the first thing that's happened is there's a pop-up there, and I've got to perform an action in order to remove that to see the content. So Google is considering this intrusive. So it could be in some cases there where you've got a pop-up that's not covered full screen. I could tap above, or I could click below it, or in a lot of cases with these full screen pop-ups, you've got to click that X button in order to close and remove that from the journey before you can see the content that's lying underneath. Now, on the subject of interstitials, there are also non-intrusive interstitials. So not every pop-up that appears is intrusive in Google's eyes. And there's a couple of examples on the screen there. So cookie pop-ups, they are non-intrusive, so they've got to be there for legal requirements. So of age restriction pop-ups, they need to be there by legal requirements. And also any pop-up that appears on the initial page load that covers less than 15% of the screen size. So that again is considered non-intrusive by Google. And we've also got these 3 new ranking signals that are collectively known as the core web vitals. They are loading, interactivity, and stability, and collectively they're known as the core web vitals. The loading ranking signal, which focuses on largest contentful paint, And that is the time that is taken for the largest content element on a page to be downloaded and ready to be interacted with. Interactivity, which focuses on first input delay. And that's a measurement of the time between a user's first interaction with a web page to the point in which the browser can start to process that interaction. And stability, which focuses on cumulative layout shift, is a measurement of visual stability that focuses on any layout shifts of a web page. Now, the first two, largest contentful paint and first input delay, they're quite easy to pinpoint and they're quite easy to measure and see the effects of using tools that I'll be running through later in this webinar. But cumulative layout shift is it doesn't tend to be so easy to pinpoint. So what is that? What is cumulative layout shift? For those that aren't familiar, this is cumulative layout shift that you see on your screen at the moment. So what's happening there is there are two buttons on the screen. So this page is loaded, or I believe it's loaded fully, and there are two buttons on the screen. I want to click one of the buttons, so I want to click the no go back. The page hadn't fully loaded and it shifted down, in such a manner that the button I ended up clicking wasn't the button that I intended. That wasn't the action I wanted to perform, and I ended up in this case placing an order. So they're highly frustrating. Now you know what they are. You'll probably recognize them and come across them in the future, and you can see why Google wants to encourage us to improve user experience in this area. Not only is that frustrating, but it can be quite damaging, especially if I've ended up, and as you see in that case, I ended up placing an order when that's not what I wanted. That's not what I intended to do. So that is the three core Web Vital ranking signals. So the benefits of page experience. What can we achieve? What are the positives? What are the benefits that we can get out of optimizing and improving page experience? Well, from Google, the page experience signal measures aspects of how users perceive the experience of interacting with a web page. So on that subject, Google believes that improving, optimizing that page experience ranking signal will contribute to business success on the web as users grow, as being more engaged, and then can transact with less friction. So individually, let's look at each of these ranking signals. What are the benefits if we spend time and invest in improving each of them? Well, the mobile friendly ranking signal, that can improve any KPIs from mobile traffic. So any key performance indicators that we monitor to measure the success of our websites from Google search traffic, from mobile in particular. Obviously, the mobile friendly ranking signal that can help us improve those KPIs. HTTPS, well, that will increase user confidence in our website and our brand. I would anticipate the majority of the audience today, their websites are running on HTTPS already. If not, then potentially we can lose traffic through lack of confidence. Safe browsing, that will improve and provide a safe environment for our visitors. Non-intrusive interstitials, well, that can improve user experience, but it can also lower bounce rates and increase the time that visitors are spending on a web page. If they're enjoying that experience more, there's less reason for them to move off. And the core Web Vitals, well, collectively they can boost our conversion rates, and again they can help lower those bounce rates. Now it's really important at this stage to again hit home another big point that we shouldn't subsidize page experience for content value. And by this, what I mean is page experience is not more important than good quality content. The likelihood is, and this has been stipulated by Google, that if you have pages that have a high quality content value and a low page experience score, you would likely, all other ranking signals considered to be equal, you would likely outrank pages who have high page experience scores but low content value. In an ideal world, obviously, we wouldn't ignore either or subsidize for either. But what I don't want to happen here is that we ignore the value of our content in order to increase page experience and think we might be able to subsidize the one for the other. We can't. Quality content will always outweigh page experience, but ideally we want them to both be as optimized as they can be. Impact on the workforce. So where's the majority of this work going to lie within the workplace? Who's going to be responsible and who's going to be involved? Well, designers, developers and marketeers can all be involved in helping to improve page experience. The impact on designers, we expect that to be reasonably low. However, if we're looking at improving user experience based on an example, the intrusive interstitials, there may be a little bit of design work required in order to redesign some of these interstitials to make them non-intrusive. So there's a little bit of work there potentially for designers. But in a majority of cases, developers and marketeers will have the majority of the workload here. And what I'd expect, content editors, marketeers, you can be involved in the testing phase, so auditing and testing, of which I'll run through a little bit later on. And then developers, of course, you'll be involved more in the crux of optimizing, of improving on these ranking signals based on the audits and the tests that your marketing and content editor teams have performed. There's also potentially a visual impact that has been predicted. Back when the mobile-friendly ranking signal was introduced, we saw mobile-friendly labels appear in search results next to an actual search result there that you see on your screen. You'll see a little tag, a little mobile-friendly label. And this indicated to users that that page, that search result, that particular page was mobile-friendly. Now, if Google follows suit with a visual indication, a visual indicator similar to this, then that is something potentially we could see in the future. Maybe a page experience friendly little label or icon could start to appear next to search results to indicate that this page has a good page experience. So that's not guaranteed, maybe not what it looks like, but like I say, if Google follows suit with how they did with mobile friendly labels for a visual indicator, it could look something like that. So testing and optimizing for page experience. Now, how do we go about auditing and testing each of our web pages for the new page experience ranking signal? And then how do we take that a step further and how do we optimize? How do we improve on the results that we get? Well, first of all, we're going to need an audit in order to record our results. There's a link in the chat for the Contensis page experience audit, and there'll also be a link in the ebook when you receive it. And this is a template that we've created. So all you'll need to do is copy the template file from Google Drive and create your own template. You can simply just copy the one that we've done there. That is a template, so it'll be viewable only. You won't be able to fill it in from the link. And of course, if you request access, we won't be able to give you direct access to that because then you'll all be sharing the same document. So you just simply copy the file from Google Drive, and or alternatively create one that looks very similar. So you'll see three tabs across the bottom there: the Web Vitals, those core Web Vitals, the new ranking signals, and interstitials. And for each of those, you'll find I've put a little example in to sort of indicate and show, and also conditional formatting to let you know if your result is a pass or a fail. Now, when we've got our audit, the first thing we want to do is we're going to want to fill in that first column with our web pages. Now, sites, I understand, they can be very large in terms of the number of pages that you've got within them. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to prioritize the web pages that we audit, and we're going to want to do that in a particular order. And that order is going to be based on the highest organic traffic referring pages first. So the pages that you're getting the most website traffic from, they're the pages that are likely to be the most impactful pages from Google search. They could well be the highest referring traffic pages for mobile search as well. So we're going to want to start with those particular pages. And to do that, we're going to go into Google Analytics. As you can see on the screen, we're going to go into acquisition and all traffic channels, and then we're going to select organic search traffic. From there, you can see above where you've got the little number 5, we're going to click landing page, and that is then going to list all of our landing pages for organic search traffic. And we're then going to prioritize based on users or sessions. And you can then export all those URLs directly out of Google Analytics. Again, all these steps are going to be in the ebook for you when you receive it. So don't worry too much about following too deeply. But as a reminder, it's going to be Google Analytics that we get this information from. So we've got all our URLs. We've got them in the audit ready. If you've got hundreds or thousands potentially of web pages, as I say, you're going to be prioritizing these based on the highest referring traffic from Google search first. So you'll probably find that you may have 1,000 odd pages, but a small portion of those, maybe 5 or 10%, are driving like 90 to 95% of traffic. So start with those and look to prioritize to get those optimized, audited and optimized first, and then start moving down the lower hanging fruit pages that you have that would sort of drip in maybe a couple of website visits a month. So mobile friendly, how do we go about testing and optimizing for this ranking signal? So we're going to use Google's mobile friendly testing tool. Again, links to this in the ebook, and there's a link in the channel as well. We visit the mobile friendly testing tool, and we're simply going to put in the first URL that's in our audit, and we're going to click test URL. And once we've performed that test, if the URL that we're performing the test on is mobile friendly, we should see a screen like this, and that's just indicating everything's fine, page is mobile friendly. Great. We can mark a pass next to that URL in our audit for mobile friendly. If we have a Google Search Console account, what we can actually do is we can monitor moving forward if any pages that Google finds within our site are no longer mobile friendly. So when could that potentially happen? Well, we could create a brand new page for our website. And if it doesn't follow form, if it's been quite custom or bespoke in its development nature, potentially like a new login area for clients or something like that, it's not something that's always considered. Has that been made mobile friendly? So when Google crawls our website, if it finds any pages that aren't mobile friendly, it will flag those to us under the mobile usability section of our Google Search Console. As you can see, quite how important this Google Search Console is starting to become already. However, Google's only going to find these pages when it crawls our site. Dependent on a number of factors, Google may only crawl our site once a week, once a month, quarterly, 6 monthly in some extreme cases. So if you built new pages, what I recommend you do is you run those new URLs, those new pages through the mobile friendly testing tool, just to be sure. So if we get a result that is not mobile friendly, we would see an indication there on our screen, page is not mobile friendly. And what Google will do is it will list a couple of the areas that it recommends that you fix in order to make your page mobile friendly. So you can see there's a couple of couple of fix areas there that the mobile friendly testing tool flagged. And some of the most common areas for optimizing, if we've run our URL through Google's mobile friendly testing tool and it's come back and it's not mobile friendly, what areas can we look to optimize in order to improve? We can look to defer unused CSS, avoid excessive DOM size, eliminate render blocking resources, and ensure any text remains visible during the web font load. What are we aiming for? What are we looking to achieve? Quite simply, a pass in the mobile friendly testing tool. That's what we want to achieve for each URL. Safe browsing, testing and optimizing for the new ranking signal. So in the Google Search Console, under Security and Manual Actions, Google will highlight any signs of hacking or malicious content that it finds. So if you've got a Google Search Console, go in there, have a look under Security and Manual Actions. If you've got no issues detected with a nice green tick, fantastic. That's another pass for that URL. If you haven't got a Google Search Console already, as I said, highly recommend you sign up for one of those. They're completely free and they're worth their weight in gold. Some common issues that are detected for safe browsing are hacked URL injection, malware issues, harmful downloads, uncommon downloads, deceptive pages, and unclear mobile billing. So if any of these appeared under the security issues in your Google Search Console, those drop downs would give you further information about those issues, and obviously it would completely depend on the security issue that Google finds to dictate how then you fix that, but it would help highlight at the very least what the area of concern is. So these are really common, I know. However, you'll be surprised at how often these areas for optimizing safe browsing are ignored or not given enough value to. So in this case, safe browsing, prevention is key. We want to prevent any hacks or injection of malicious content. And to do that, just some common areas: using strong passwords, changing them on a regular basis, keeping software up to date, and ensuring third-party software is secure and also checked on a regular basis as well. And what are we aiming for? Well, we're looking for no issues, of course, in the security report. HTTPS, testing and optimizing for this ranking signal, is quite simple. So to check if your URL is served over HTTPS, if you open your web page in Google Chrome, you'll see a little padlock symbol under the next to URL in the browser address bar, and if you click on that padlock, if you get connection is secure, great. You've got a HTTPS connection with that URL, and if it's not, expect to see a message like that appear. Your connection is not private, so likelihood is there that URL hasn't been served over HTTPS, probably HTTP. So now I'd like to think, as I say, that probably the majority of websites that we see today are served over HTTPS. However, when they're not, it is quite obvious. It's quite evident. You'll see a little red triangle in Google, for example, in their address bar, and some of the other browsers also have their own ways of flagging URLs that aren't yet served over the secure connection. So what are we looking to do there? We're simply looking to serve all web pages over HTTPS. So any web pages you've got currently that are served over HTTP, maybe look to have those pages served over HTTPS. And to do that, you simply need an SSL certificate, and that would sort of formulate the secure connection for you. The S in HTTP simply stands for secure. So as I say, I'd like to think the majority of web pages that we see today are served over HTTPS, but if not, and your development team or your hosting team would be able to help migrate any current pages from HTTP over to HTTPS. Non-intrusive interstitials, how do we test and how do we optimize for those? So there's a separate tab in the audit just dedicated to interstitials. What we want to look at here, there are some key points of consideration when we're auditing, some focus areas. So we want to look at the location of the pop-up that's appeared. Where has it appeared? Was it full screen? Was it just at the top of a page? Was it at the bottom of a page? How much of the viewable screen size did the pop-up take up? Remember, anything less than 15% is considered non-intrusive. So higher than 15%, you want to be flagging those, and the conditional formatting there in the audit will do that for you as well. So this is the device screen size. Remember, we're looking at mobile in particular. So how much of the screen size of mobile has that pop-up taken up? So you have a rough guess when you're looking. So yeah, less than 15%, we're absolutely fine. More than 15%, it's likely it's going to be considered intrusive. So we also want to look at whether it's a legal requirement. Remember, anything that pops up that is there for legal purposes, so cookie pop-ups and also age restriction pop-ups, they're absolutely fine. We haven't got to worry about those. So what we do is when we've completed our audit, we're going to look at the size. Less than 15%, absolutely fine. Greater than 15%, no, it's going to be considered intrusive. And legal requirements. So there are cases where the pop-up will appear and it's larger than 15% of screen size, but it's there by legal requirement. So is that intrusive? No, it's got to be there. Sorry, if it's by legal requirement is yes, then it's got to be there. So we're not considered to be intrusive. And on the flip side, there can be cases where there are pop-ups that appear that aren't intrusive in nature, so that they're not, for example, taken up a full screen. They can be less than 15%, but have they got to be there by legal requirement? No, but they're still not intrusive. They're less than 15% screen size, so they're completely fine. So just a little quick reminder, the intrusive interstitials, as you see there on your screen, those pop-ups that appear, they're covering page content. I've got to perform an action in order to close them, in order to get to the content that I intended. And the non-intrusive interstitials, well, they're there for purposes of legal requirement or less than 15% screen size. So tips for optimizing for those non-intrusive interstitials. What we can do is we can look to delay the pop-up until after the full page is loaded. So Google only considers any interstitial to be intrusive if it's within the initial page load. So once that page is fully loaded, if we can delay that pop-up by a couple of seconds, that's fine. Google's not looking at that portion of the journey, only when the full page is loaded. We can make the pop-up smaller than 15% screen size. I mean, we'll also replace those pop-ups perhaps with banners that sit in between content as opposed to overlaying content. That's a quick little workaround for those. And what are we aiming for? So no instant pop-ups that cover more than 15% of the device screen size. And the final ranking signal, Core Web Vitals. How do we test and how do we optimize? There's a number of testing tools that we can use for Core Web Vitals. For content editors and marketeers in the audience, for purposes of completing that audit for the development team, you can use PageSpeed Insights, and that's the only tool you'll need to use. And there are a number of other tools such as Chrome UX Report and the Search Console that can help us monitor Core Web Vitals moving forward. And also developers in the audience, they may be more familiar with Chrome DevTools and Lighthouse. So there are a number of other tools that can be used as well. Again, links to all of these are in the ebook and in the chat channel as well. But to test for Core Web Vitals, we're going to use the PageSpeed Insights tool. In the same way that we used the mobile PageSpeed Insights tool, we simply enter the URL and click Analyze. And we're going to see three sets of data. The data is going to be the same, but it's categorized into three. And we have field data, which is a collection of historical data. We have origin summary, which shows the data for the whole domain, so not just that URL that we've tested. And we have lab data, which is the live data performed from the test that we have just done there and then. So that is live, that is now. However, lab data is not real world user data. So field summary, where you have field summary data available, and that will only tend to be if Google has enough information about the web page already. If you have that field data, great, we will use the metrics that have been listed in there. If not, and probably in a lot of cases, we may only have lab data that's available. But what we're going to look at are the 3 core Web Vitals ranking signals. So if you remember, they're largest contentful paint, first input delay, and cumulative layout shift. So I'm going to refer to these now as LCP, FID, and CLS. And if you look on your screen where you've got a little blue tag, a little blue flag next to each of those, that is to highlight that they are the core Web Vital ranking signals. So if we were looking at this screen, if we only had lab data, what you'll also see is that we have largest contentful paint, and we have cumulative layout shift. What we don't have is first input delay. And in those cases, Google has recommended that we use total blocking time. So why in lab data don't we have the first input delay measurement? Well, simply because first input delay needs a real user interaction. It can't be synthetically performed in the lab test. It needs a real world user interaction. So in those cases, as I say, so let's say, for example, as probably the majority of cases will be, we only have lab data available. We will record there largest contentful paint, 11 seconds. We will record cumulative layout shift, 0.09, and then we would use total blocking time, 590 milliseconds, as a replacement for first input delay. So those that is the data that you then enter into your audit under the Core Web Vitals tab for each individual column. So what are the most common causes for poor performance in Core Web Vitals? Well, for largest contentful paint, some of the most common issues are slow server response times, render blocking JavaScript and CSS, slow resource load times and client-side rendering. The first input delay, pretty much one of the only common causes that we see most of all is heavy JavaScript execution. And for cumulative layout shift, images without dimensions, dynamic injected content, animations, just to name a few. So if you failed in the test for any of these Core Web Vitals, you can look to these areas, some of the more common causes, and look to optimize in those areas. However, the ebook actually has quite a detailed section on optimizing for Core Web Vitals. So if you failed any of the tests under the Core Web Vital metrics, you can refer then to the ebook for that particular section, and there'll be a whole list of areas for recommended solutions that you can perform. So when I say passes and fails for Core Web Vitals, well, what are the actual targets? Well, what we're looking to achieve is good. It needs to be largest contentful paint, loading equal to or less than 2.5 seconds. First input delay, loading equal to or less than 100 milliseconds. And the cumulative layout shift, equal to or less than a score of 0.1. For any developers in the audience who want to know how that layout shift score is calculated, the sum is impact fraction times distance fraction, and that will give you your cumulative layout shift score. And if you need any further elaboration on impact fraction and distance fraction, again, the ebook will provide detail on those. Now on to our final thoughts, so the conclusion for today's webinar. Now, Google has been heading towards page experience as a ranking signal for quite some time now. As you might remember, I mentioned HTTPS, mobile friendly, and mobile speed were all major ranking updates. So we can see that Google has has been encouraged to head towards a path of a page experience dedicated ranking signal now for sort of 5 or 6 years. It's been working towards that. So we can see the direction that Google has been taking. As we know, page experience affects mobile search only. So prioritize any mobile pages first. But as I've mentioned, that's not a reason to ignore any other devices. So desktops, laptops, tablets. This is a perfect opportunity for us to look at improving user experience across all device types. So optimizing your website for the page experience ranking signal. Again, really want to hit this home. There's 2 big benefits, 2 focus points: improving search engine results positions, and that can lead to more website traffic, but also a better user experience, and it's that will help lead to more conversions and improve conversion rates. There's also potential costs associated if we choose to ignore page experience as a new ranking signal. Potentially reduced website traffic from mobile search if we're going to completely ignore it. Higher website bounce rates potentially. As I mentioned, some of those interstitials they're really frustrating. Some of those pop-ups, they appear and the user can't physically close that pop-up, or they're struggling to do so. They can bounce straight back into the search results pages and potentially end up clicking one of your competitors' web pages and going there instead. It can help us lower, it can cause lower conversion rates. There's potential damage to brand. Okay, that's a bit extreme, but let's say, for example, that we ignored safe browsing, the ranking signal in the future, and our site got hacked. Some malicious content was placed in there. Then potentially there's damage that we cause to the brand, and of course, in the same aspect, potential website downtime as well if our site is hacked and we've chose to ignore any flags that Google's raised to us in the Google Search Console. Ultimately, to summarize, poor user experience can lead to a decrease in online revenue and business lead opportunities. So what is page experience? Well, certainly what it is not is a frustrating necessity for optimization, and I think I've kind of hit that home. What is it? Well, it's going to be a way to improve overall experience of our website for our users, a way to improve our search engine ranking positions, a way to improve our conversion rates, and if we chose to move forward with this and focus, and our competition don't, potentially is a way for us to outperform our competition. And finally, there's a couple of key statements, 3 key statements here that I want to quote from Google. So through both internal studies and industry research, users show they prefer sites with a great page experience. What's that telling us? That's telling us there's proof in the pudding. Google has evidence that if we improve page experience, our users are going to prefer our website. A good page experience doesn't override having great content, and I think I've hit that home already. We can't subsidize whenever new ranking signals come in. They're not. We're not to subsidize others for those, but content, particularly at the moment and probably for a long time to come, will always be king. So good, relevant content is priority here. But if we can marry that up with a great page experience, well, that's the perfect combination. And also Google's final statement here: we plan to incorporate more page experience signals on a yearly basis to both further align with evolving user expectations and increase the aspects of user experience that we can measure. So what's that telling me? Well, we already know that Google's been working towards page experience, the ranking signal, for some time, and it's also stating there that it's around to stay. Google expects to evolve this ranking signal. In what ways would it evolve? Potentially other device types. Yes, at the moment, mobile device is the main sort of key driver for mobile traffic from search. However, that's not to say that would always be the case as new devices are introduced, and also different types of search as well. We're seeing voice search on the rise with tools such as the likes of Alexa, for example, and Google Search. but also the introduction of AI maybe sometime in the distant future, and think about how page experience will then need to evolve in order to accommodate for those as well. But what that statement in key is telling me is that page experience and anchor signal is definitely ready to stay in, and Google expects to evolve it moving forward.